So welcome everyone to my part. I'm going to go a little bit more in depth on the practical side of Teams and give you 5 useful steps towards more powerful collaboration. Now, when I was creating my session, I came across a really nice slide, which is the 3 C's of cross-functional work. And I think this really applies to teams as well. When we talk about teams, we usually talk about, okay, it's about communication and collaboration. I think there's a third element in there as well, which is coordination. The fact that you can work together with your people, but to organize your tasks and everything related to it. So let's zoom in on these 3 elements and what you can do with it. So I have 5 topics ready for you. 5 topics where I'll give you a couple of examples of how you can use these 3 C's of cross-functional working. So first of all, I'm going to talk about the difference between having communication in a channel versus the chat. As we have seen in both Patrick's presentation and the last presentation, we see that a lot of people are getting into Teams and using Teams. Most of them are using it for chats and meetings, but there's so much more to Teams that we can discover. So let's take a little investigation in the difference between the two. I'll give you some information about when and how you can use private channels, and that's the collaboration part. And then for the third part, the coordination, I'm going to talk a bit about the possible task management tools you have within Teams, and we'll talk about the planner integration in Teams, how you can use tasks in Teams, and also how to integrate Office 365, one of the newest applications within the Office 365 platform. So first of all, when we talk about communication, as I said, most people are going to use the chat to talk with their colleagues or with external people. You can have this as a guest or via federation, but you can also use the channel to have communication. Now, when are you going to use one or the other? I'm not going to say that one is better than the other, but both have their specific needs and specifications. Yeah. So for example, if you're going to create a message within a channel, the advantage is that based on the type of channel, based on the type of team, it can be a public or a private message. It is always going to be a message that is visible to the entire channel. Whereas if you're going to create a chat session with someone, that is usually a one-on-one, or even with multiple people, you can have up to 100 people in a chat session. But if you want to add someone to a chat session later, then you need to make sure that that person can also see the conversation history if needed. Whereas if you do this in a channel and you add someone later, they can immediately see the entire history of that communication. Big difference for me also is the notification part. So if you're going to post something within a channel, this is more general information. I like to compare this with a carbon copy, a CC for a mail, where you're going to send an information to a lot of people. Okay, they get the message and they can see it. In chat, you're going to have a notification when you receive the message. So big difference. However, and this is a nice trick I want to highlight, within a channel, you also have, sorry, I accidentally touched the mouse. There we go again. So within a channel, you also have the possibility to notify someone with an @ mention. Now, a great trick in there, something that a lot of people don't know, is that within a channel or within a team, actually, you can also create custom tags. And a custom tag is something that you can, it's a tag, and under that tag, you can have several people. Now, one of the best examples I can give is, let's say I'm in a team with 100 people in there. So for example, I'm part of the OASA team. That's my group of people. And so we have a core team of 3 or 4 people in there who work in that team daily. But of course, we have also added other people in there who need to be able to access the information within that team. Now, if I want to mention my 3 direct colleagues, instead of typing their names one after the other with an @ mention, you can also create a custom tag. With a custom tag, let me show you quickly what it looks like. So in here, I can go to my team and then I can create a custom tag. And within that tag, I can put several people. And so instead of typing the @ mention of the channel or the team, I can mention this group name, the demo group, for example, and then it will send a notification to all of those people, which is a nice trick to have more direct communication. Now you see there's a lot of elements that I've put in here, and the presentation will be shared with you afterwards as well. But one of the other elements that I really like within the distinction between a channel and a chat is also the history and how you can see who has seen your information. As I've told you already, within a channel, it's very easy. Everyone can see what was already written within that channel. So you have a history by default. In a chat, it's only a conditional history. So you need to make sure that you activate the fact that people can see the history of the chat. Now, next to that, and I also think this is part of history, is that within a chat, you can actually see who has seen your message. If you're going to post something in a channel, it's not easy to see if other people have seen your message. Yeah, so you can use a like for that, for example, and ask people if you have seen this, like it. Within the chats, actually, you can see who has seen your message. So let me go back to my Teams environment. If I'm in the chats and I posted something this morning and I want to see, okay, who has seen my message here? Now I can hover over my message, go to the ellipsis next to my emoticons, and here you can see that this message was read by 4 of the 5 people in this group, for example. So if you have a group conversation within a chat, that's a nice advantage over a channel, that is that you can actually see who has seen your message. So each of them have their possibilities, but they both have their own value. So don't just use chat for your communication, but remember that you can also do this within a channel if it's more of a if the history, for example, is more important. Now, if we talk about collaboration, and within Teams, I know that a lot of people have already been working on collaboration, of course. You have your different channels, and within your channels, you can have your files and work on specific topics. But already quite a long time ago, Microsoft added the functionality that you can also create private channels. A private channel within a team is a specific group that is only visible by specific people. You can define who is a part of a private channel. Now, so you can create standard channels, you can create private channels. Keep in mind that the fact that you can create private channels, actually there is quite some control behind it. So first of all, the Teams administrator can define if you can actually create private channels, yes or no, but also the team owner himself or herself can decide if private channels can be created. So this is something that can be different from team to team. Within a team with regular settings, with regular control settings, each owner, but also each member can create a private channel and can add members and guests to that channel. But keep in mind that only people who are a part of that team itself can be added to that channel. So here is already a first important question you can ask yourself if you want to create something more private. Should I create a private channel or should I create a private team? If the people you want to add to the private channel are also going to be part of that team, then it's more useful to create a private channel because all the information is grouped together. You're going to talk about one specific topic, one specific project, then you can have a private that team to have everything grouped together in one single team. But if you're going to include people who are not going to be part of the general team, for some reason or other, this could be the case, then it's better to create a separate team. Also keep in mind, if you're going to create a private channel, that this has separate access rights from the main team. So this means, let me show you in here. So I'll talk about files in a moment, but this means that if you're going to add someone to the team, that person will not have access to the private channel by default. You need to add them manually as well. And so you really need to think about this. How many people am I going to add later on to this private channel? Is it more useful to have a team, a separate team, or a private channel as well? Now, also very interesting to know is that the files and everything actually related to that private channel is stored in a separate site collection. So you may already know that Teams on the background runs for a bit on SharePoint. So the file storage happens on SharePoint. But if you're going to create a private channel, then all of the information is going to be stored on a separate site collection. Now you have to keep this in mind because this can be a little bit tricky, especially for people who are not very accustomed to working with Teams. You can, for example, um, synchronize the SharePoint library with the documents to your computer. But if you're going to work with private channels and maybe multiple private channels, this would mean that those private channels are not synchronized because they come from another location. So you have to keep that in mind. Also, private channels are a little bit limited, not extremely, because most of the things you can do, but I think one of the important elements you have to keep in mind also, if you want to create a private channel, is because it's a separate SharePoint site collection, and so not an actual Office 365 group. That means that you cannot create a planner in a private channel. So if planner is an important part of what you want to do in this private environment, this private channel, then maybe it's more useful to create a private team, a second team. Also, something to keep in mind that I've not written in here, but it's very useful to know. Any member of a team can create a private channel. Okay, so it's perfectly possible that me, for example, as a normal user, a normal member of the team, I can create a private channel and not include the team owner in there. So it's perfectly possible to have a private channel to make fun of the team owner, for example. Now, keep in mind that although the team owner doesn't have to be part of the team, since they are the owner of the team, they can see all the channels within the team, including private channels as well. They cannot access the information from the private channel because they're not a member, but they will be able to see that this private channel exists. So keep this in mind if you're going to create private channels. Be careful with how you name your channel because this could be contain important information that is not necessarily hidden. Now, speaking of Planner, Planner is an amazing tool of Office 365 that you can use to coordinate all your different tasks. It's an Office 365 app, but it can be perfectly integrated within your team's channels. If you have multiple teams or even multiple channels within teams, you can also have multiple plans. It's perfectly possible to have 5 channels, for example, and that each of those channels contains its own plan in there. I'm not going to go into all the details of what can be done within Planner, but to give you a basic idea, within Planner, you can create buckets, and buckets are actually kind of categories of information. Within these buckets, you can create tasks and you can assign those tasks to one or multiple people. And this allows you to actually keep track of an entire project or for example, what you see here is how we keep track of the roadmap of our Teams escape room app. And so you see that we may have some issues or open questions, and we can track all of that within Teams itself. So we don't need a separate application for this. It is a separate app from Office 365, but because it is fully integrated within Teams, we don't have to leave the environment. As Mr. Viano was also saying, this is going to be one single platform. Now, if you're going to have multiple plans within Teams, it can become tricky to keep track of all the information that you have within plans. And that is why there's, since a couple of months, there's a really cool integration in Teams, which is called Tasks in Teams. And it's very funny because you see here that it's still called Planner. The icon is still called Planner. When I looked this morning on my environment, it had changed, and now it has a new look or a new name. It's now called Tasks by Planner. So this is something that's going to change over the next couple of weeks also. It first was called Tasks, now it's called Task by Planner, and at the end of the year, or maybe in a couple of weeks, it's going to be called Tasks. Now, what you can do within Tasks is actually group together all of those different tasks that are important to you. So what you see here, for example, is that I have all the plans from all my different teams are grouped together in here. Another advantage that you have is that instead of seeing this as a board, and let me quickly switch to a board. So here I have a board view. Within the Tasks app, you can also show this as a list, which can be actually quite useful if you want to keep track of the full overview of all your different tasks. Now, these are your teams tasks or the group tasks, but next to that, of course, you also have your own tasks. So it integrates also with the To-Do app, another app within Office 365, where you can keep track of tasks. Also integrated with Planner to give you an overview of all the tasks assigned to you. And also with Outlook, where you can, for example, see all the flagged emails that you have put in Outlook, you have one single place to keep track of all your tasks. And I think this is, for me, one of the most amazing things they have added to Teams in the last couple of months. And as we have seen already, Microsoft has added quite a lot already in Teams. For me, this is one of the highlights because it allows me to keep track of all the different information that is stored everywhere within Teams and have it all grouped together in one single place. Now, if you're talking about lists, and I've shown you here that you can see your data as or your tasks as a list already also, there's one other integration you can have within Teams, and that is the Office 365 Lists app. Now, Lists is an application that groups together all the different lists you have created on different SharePoint sites. So it's a new look and feel. It's very nice how it feels, and you can have really nice visualization of your data. So if tasks is not necessarily what you're looking for within your Teams environment, know that you can also integrate lists within Teams for more regular information. Now, of course, it's going to be a little bit tricky to keep track of all that information and when you're going to use what. I think the communication and collaboration part is already quite fully covered by other sessions here and on other platforms as well. But if we talk about collaboration, coordination, I think there's really useful thing you can do, and is have to keep a track of when are you going to use what application. Now, there are several lists where you can find this, and here's an example of how you can see when you're going to use which kind of application. So for example, when are you going to use Planner? When are you going to use lists? When are you going to use To-Do or tasks? And for that, I like to come back to what Tom and Christophe were saying earlier. This is where you need those digital coaches to help you find the correct tool for what you're going to use in what situation. All right, I see that my time is up, so I think I more or less covered what I wanted to see. So thanks for being here. I hope you found some inspiration in the elements I've shown you here. And so I'd say back to Tom and Christophe.